Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. Today we're going to be talking about Hayden Christensen, Dave Filoni, and much more, but we're going to start with Mace Windu. In February of 2024, this great Jedi Master is getting his own comic run, and I've got to say I'm super pumped. That being said, the most recent issue of Hyperspace Stories was rather disappointing for the way they portrayed the character and the overall story. I've been covering this series for a long time, and I regret to inform you after the next issue, the entire series is coming to an end. This Dark Horse miniseries has been fascinating. While every single issue is different, there is one story thread that connects all of them. I've enjoyed the supplementary stories of the Bad Batch. There was an issue about Rey, where she got to meet Chewbacca's son. I like the story with Boba Fett, Anakin, Obi-Wan, but issue 11, which released last Wednesday, I've got to say was extremely disappointing. This one concerned Yoda and Mace on a pretty uneventful journey. Now I'm going to go through the comic in just a moment, but it is worth reiterating, not every comic issue is going to be interesting. There have been hit and miss ones, even in the best of series, for example the Vader comics. And after 10 pretty solid issues, I know it wasn't the most popular series in the world, Hyperspace Stories gave us a pretty boring one, which you would think is pretty hard to do with Yoda, Mace Windu and Count Dooku, but here we are. And I suppose my point with this is we don't really see Mace Windu appear too much in Disney content. He appeared in the Clone Wars Season 7, Tales of the Jedi, and now he's getting his own comic miniseries in 2024, so I hope they don't let the character down, and of course there is a vocal side of the fandom who hopes he returns in the New Republic era, alive, having survived Episode 3, and lived through the Empire's reign. But failing the latter, at least give us good Mace Windu stories in comic form. And again, there is the possibility he appears in Tales of the Jedi Season 2. While he had a very brief appearance in the first season, the way he was written was so true to Samuel L. Jackson's live-action version. That is an appearance Disney Lucasfilm got right. Dooku and Mace Windu teamed up on the planet Raxus Secundus. They were investigating the death of Master Katri, and early in the episode, Count Dooku tells Windu something which hits the nail on the head. He says, quote, "Your devotion to rules is sometimes inspiring and sometimes maddening." And that was a reference to Windu's unquestioning compliance to the Jedi Order's instructions and his loyalty to the Council, and this sums up Master Windu pretty well. So in his comic miniseries, we want to see the master of the Force that he was, skilled in Vapad. Of course we want to see some Shatterpoint abilities, and I guess that'd be a good place to confirm or deny his death. Although I do suspect they're going to steer clear of all of this debate. They've already said he's dead in various guidebooks since the acquisition. But returning to this latest issue, Master Windu and Yoda go to the planet Basant. This is one we've never seen in canon before. They're about to give a set of youngling initiates a tour of an archaeological dig, which contains a number of Jedi artifacts. During their visit, Master Windu gets a premonition of something going wrong, and soon they're attacked by a group of assassins who are local to the planet. After they go to a nearby cave to retreat, the Masters meditate in the Force, and they realize that the assassins had been hired by a third party, Count Dooku himself, who appears and battles against Windu and Yoda. Dooku makes an escape, and many of the artifacts are destroyed. All it tells us is that there was an extra time Dooku confronted Windu and Yoda during the Clone Wars. So as I say my dear friends, fingers crossed we get better Mace Windu stories in the future. I don't want Disney to neglect him, and I'm hoping we get some insane stories from this new comic series which is about to come out. And so now guys, on to something way more positive. Dave Filoni is aware that Ahsoka fans want to know the fate of Sabine Wren's Lothcat. With Sabine and Ahsoka left on Peridia, what happened to Mali? Is he being looked after by Ryder Azadi or other locals on Lothal? Well, here is what Dave Filoni said speaking with Dagobah Dispatch podcast. "I don't do social media or any of that stuff, but it filtered through to me that people were worried that the cat got left behind." He says, "I'm a pet owner. Of course I know what happens to the cat, but it was amazing that of all things in the galaxy to be concerned about, the fans are concerned about the cat. It's totally fair." He then went on to say this, with the cat, obviously there are a couple of things at play. First, I think Sabine would leave the door cracked open. Second of all, I think Merle's smart enough to be able to move through the ventilation ducts, up and down the tower. I don't think he needs to operate the elevator. I wouldn't question if he could, but I think he can move up and down the ductwork to get out of there to the ground level. Maybe there are other Lothcats around. He's not the only one. And now my dear friends, staying on the subject of Ahsoka, I'm certainly not the first Star Wars fan to be this excited that we're living at a time where Hayden Christensen is actively involved in Star Wars again. Back at Star Wars Celebration, he certainly had an emotional reaction to the wave of overwhelming love for his character, in spite of how poorly the press treated him in the 2000s. His performance in the prequel trilogy was certainly underappreciated at the time, but there is a newfound positivity for the prequels, and while it is true that fans typically say Revenge of the Sith was his best performance, I've always maintained Attack of the Clones was the best demonstration of the anger bubbling in Anakin, his frustration, and the earliest signs of Vader on full display. And apart from Star Wars, Hayden's acted in a range of lesser-known projects as well, some larger than others. Those of note are American Heist, Jumper, Shattered Glass, but just like any protagonist who acts in the galaxy far, far away, he will be forever best known for his role as Anakin Skywalker. In the prequels he was great, in Kenobi he was awesome, but in Ahsoka Season 1 he was breathtaking, towing that line between Vader and Anakin. And we spoke about Dave's comments the other day, how he said Vader will still be a part of Anakin's Force Ghost. I would love to see how they explore the more ethereal aspects, presumably on Peredia in Season 2 and in Filoni's movie. But while Hayden Christensen will always be Anakin in the minds of many, he now has a huge chance to establish himself as a larger actor in some big films. In a new exclusive from The Hollywood Reporter, Hayden has signed, or should I say re-signed, with Independent Artist Group, IAG, which is a truly heartwarming and positive sign. Hayden's got his confidence back. He wants to put himself back out there. The signing is a full circle moment, as it sees the actor re-teaming with the person who signed him as he was ascending with Star Wars back in the early 2000s. Jim Osborne signed Hayden with the iconic agent Ed Lamato when the two agents were at ICM. Lamato passed in 2010, and over the next 2 decades, the pair's paths converged and diverted several times. But now Hayden is back with the group. After his career hiatus, he's been resurging in Star Wars as his portrayal of Anakin, and now he's back to do more. This could be the start of something wonderful, and it's not surprising Kevin Feige might have his eye on Hayden. Now, staying on the subject of Hayden Christensen and Anakin Skywalker, the other day Filoni talked about Hayden with Entertainment Weekly, saying, quote, "His lightsaber skills are just insane. He is the chosen one, there is no doubt." Filoni says he wants to work more with Hayden, and how the character central to George Lucas's story is also central to Ahsoka and the Mandoverse. I thought the ending of Season 1 was so awesome, and it teases something bigger for his place in the living Force. Filoni went on to say this: "It was kind of amazing to have someone who had this experience, who would know the things I was talking about related to Anakin, and how George Lucas saw him. We really understood each other and the language of it." And the reason this is so vital to note is because if you look at the behind the scenes for both Attack of the Clones, but more so Revenge of the Sith, when George Lucas was directing Anakin before his turn to the dark side before the helmet, but also near the end of the film where he has it on, he was feeding Hayden lots of directives, trying to get him in that headspace. Who is Darth Vader? How Anakin still lives in him. There is a lot of pain, fear, emotional damage, and those are lessons from the character that Hayden still has to this day. So that's why Dave said he understood him just as well. But Filoni emphasizes this. He didn't want Ahsoka and Anakin's reunion to, quote, devolve into a Star Wars history lesson. So rather than writing a Force Ghost scene, their reunion was in the world between worlds, allowing them to journey through their past together in a flashback. A dreamlike sequence inspired by Akira Kurosawa's Kagemusha. Filoni states, quote, "We discussed how this isn't a story about Anakin, but it's important to see how Ahsoka views Anakin. This is her lived experience. His story is already told, and George's saga is done. But this is important to her because you're her mentor." And there was a point in the show where Filoni was in awe, seeing Hayden in the Clone Wars flashbacks. And I know there are many fans who want to see more of this. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below.